going to add decimals using place value strategies, unit form, and algorithm. And the algorithm can also be referred to as a written form. And let's see, let's go ahead and let's do 2 ones, 3 tenths, plus 6 tenths. I'll start with the place value strategies. So with place value strategy, I'm going to use a place value chart. I can make one very, very quickly. And in this case, I know that I'm going to be working with the ones place and the tenths place. Put in my decimal. And when I'm using the place value strategy and a place value chart, I'm just going to now use little dots to represent my different numbers. So I have 2 ones, so I'll put 2 ones, 2 little dots into the ones place. 3 tenths, 3 dots into the tenths place. Now to represent 6 tenths, I'll do that below the 2 ones, 3 tenths. And so that's in the tenths place. I like to put my dots in rows of 5. It makes it real easy to see if I have a row of 5. It's easy to count them. And I'll put a double line to say that now I'm going to find my sum. And I'm going to add them by their units. So I'll start with the tenths place. And there are 6 tenths plus 3 tenths, which is 9 tenths. Bring down my decimal, still there. And 2 ones. So 2 ones, 3 tenths plus 6 tenths is 2 and 9 tenths. Now I'll use the unit form. And when I use the unit form, I can do a couple different things here. I can look at 2 ones. Here's my 2 ones and 3 tenths, and I'm actually going to rewrite that. 2 ones, 3 tenths is 23 tenths. When I'm adding decimals, it's important that I only add like units. So now I have tenths and I have tenths, so I can add my numbers together. 23 plus 6 is 29, so that's 29 tenths, and 29 tenths is 2 and 9 tenths. Let's go to the algorithm. Start with the first number, 2 ones and 3 tenths. I'm writing it in standard form. This is my first add-in. When I add my second add-in, 6 tenths, I am going to make sure that I line them up by place value or line them up by their units. There are 0 ones and 6 tenths, and there are 6 tenths. Now I actually can add, and I add like units. 3 tenths plus 6 tenths is 9 tenths. 2 ones plus 0 ones is 2 ones. And with adding decimals, I always just bring down my decimal. Adding decimals, you bring down your decimal. All right, let's go ahead and start with another problem here. And this one, I'll write it in standard form. Let me write 74 hundredths plus 59 hundredths. How about that number? And we're going to go ahead and start with our place value chart. Looking at it as I make my place value chart, I notice that I always like to have the ones place. I'm going to use this write numbers here instead of writing them out in words. I have ones place, tenths place, hundredths place. Now I have a couple choices here. I'm looking at this, 74 hundredths. You know, if I start drawing 74 dots into the hundredths place, that's not very efficient. It's going to take a lot of space, take a lot of time. So I want to look at that number and kind of decompose it into, let's see, 7 tenths and 4 hundredths. So it's much easier to write or draw 7 tenths and 4 hundredths. 59 hundredths, again, not very efficient to draw 59 in little dots into my hundredths place, but I can look at it as 5 tenths, 9 hundredths. And I can add these two numbers together. I'm going to start with my place value to the furthest to the right. And as I do this, I'm noticing that I'm going to have to do some regrouping, because when I have 4 hundredths and 9 hundredths, that's 13 hundredths. So I'm not going to write a 13 down below here, but I like to find things into groups of 10. That's our place value system. So I have 4, and if I add another 6 to that 4, so let me go ahead and circle. If I have 10, I can regroup. 10 hundredths is the same thing as 1 tenth. And now I'm left with 3 hundredths. Let's go over to the tenths place. I had 7 tenths, and well, 7 tenths plus 3 tenths, that's going to give me 10 tenths, and I know that I can regroup 10 tenths to one whole. And so now I'm left with 1, 2, 3 tenths. Bring down my decimal, and now I have 1, 1. So 74 hundredths plus 59 hundredths equals 1 and 33 hundredths. Now in unit form, this one's actually could be pretty easy. I could actually write it as 74 hundredths plus, I'm going to have to 59 hundredths, go ahead onto another line for space sake. Hundredths, hundredths, as long as I have the same unit, I can add my numbers together, and that would equal 133 hundredths, which I know is the same as 1 and 33 hundredths. All right, let's go to the algorithm, and I'm going to write the first number, 74 hundredths. As I write the second number, or add-in, I should call them add-ins because that's what they are, 59 hundredths, I need to make sure I line them up by place value. So 0 ones in 59 hundredths, there are 5 tenths and 9 hundredths. Now I can begin adding. 4 hundredths plus 9 hundredths is 13 hundredths. So I need to do some regrouping. I like to put my little my regrouping mark up below the line here, the sum line. It's easier to remember. It's just another way to record it. I could have put it up above the 7, but I chose not to. 7 tenths plus 5 tenths is 12 tenths, plus 1 tenth is 13 tenths. Have to do some regrouping again. I used that 1, and I will regroup. 13 tenths is the same as 3 tenths, 1 and 1. And 1 plus 0 plus 0. And I'm going to bring down my decimal. When I add decimals, when I'm using the algorithm, I'm lining up my numbers, my add-ins by place value, and then adding them and dropping down the decimal. You may be asking, why are we doing so many different ways? The algorithm seems so simple. Why not just always use the algorithm? And the algorithm is one of the most efficient ways. Usually that's what I will use, is the algorithm. But it's important to be able to understand why the algorithm's working. And when we're adding decimals, it's very important to know that we are adding place values. We're adding units, and we have to have our numbers in the, we have to only add by the same place value or the same unit forms. So it's important to note that when you're adding. And so the place value is one way of helping us to understand exactly what's going on in the algorithm, as well as the unit form.